I don't know when it was that I realized I had stopped comparing myself to others, like in all areas of my life. But I knew I just woke up one day and I felt that something had shifted, because the usual voices I would hear, the usual song and dance, the usual stories I would hear were really quiet. And it was so nice. It was wonderful. And so I just want to share with you, I guess, the ways that happened. It wasn't like a plan, but if you're struggling with comparing yourself, just listen up. Maybe you'll find something useful here. Hi there, my name is Paul. I am a recovering perfectionist, overthinker, and creative. And here on The Creative Alchemist, I just share what's on my mind, hoping that you find yourself a little bit more in tune with who you are, more grounded, and just creating more. Our brains are designed to categorize things and place them in little compartments, which is fine if you're dealing with things that are quantifiable, but often not when it comes to things that are subjective, whether it's artistic, prowess or creativity or looks or whatever it is you compare yourself to. It's easy to step into that compartmentalization because that's what we're designed to do. But it doesn't serve us. At least when I say us, I mean me. Because I used to put myself last in these woe is me Olympics. And I'd always create these stories that, why someone is better off than I am and why they're more talented at this and I suck at that. And it's draining because you're constantly doing these mental gymnastics to justify your own thoughts about yourself. Even if, the reality is different, there's something about putting yourself down that, at least for me, felt comfortable. And I'll explain why. Leave it to me to do these walk and talks on hills. That's why I'm out of breath. Forgive me. So the reason it felt comfortable for me to be in that compare and despair state, to rob myself of joy, is it took the responsibility off of me to improve myself. It took the responsibility off of me to look deeper into why it is I feel that way about myself. It was easier to blame others and the external rather than look at what it is I can do to change my mindset, to change my situation, and to change how I think about myself. Because the flip side of that, or the attachment to that, is I wouldn't have to change. And that's what it comes down to. It just was a comfortable, itchy sweater, if that makes any sense. And it's such a deeply entrenched way of being, like a default mode, that even when people would say, and show me ways that I was improving in some area or that I was better than them or in some area, I would dismiss it because, again, it was easier for me to be in that state of kind of like, poor me, this victimhood. And again, it felt safe because I didn't have to do anything other than just wallow. And as much as I said I wanted to change, there's a part of me that was scared to change. It wasn't just me that it was affecting. I realize now that, when I was around other people and I was outwardly comparing myself and saying this and that, it made people feel uncomfortable, And it put me sort of in this weird competitive state where instead of just enjoying other people's wins and their successes, I made it about myself. That how come I'm not getting it? There's this envy and jealousy and, way of seeing things that came from scarcity rather than abundance. Rather than seeing that there was enough for everyone, I just saw that any success anyone had was taking away from my own success. And so that continually put me in this lower way of thinking. I was not a fun person to be around when I'd get into those sort of comparison fugues, you know what I'm saying? And so it's easy to scroll. It's easy to look at other people in your life and look at colleagues and coworkers, friends, even family members, and say, oh, they're so much better or they're more talented or whatever. And make that your reality. And that's the thing, the more you think something, the more you create it. And so for years, I put on this outfit of not good enough. And I let that reflect in my life. And so, of course, I never really got as far as I could. I didn't succeed as much as I wanted to because I always put blockades in front of me and it all came from up here. So what changed? Let me tell you. You see, what it came down to wasn't so much about how do I stop comparing myself? The question became, how do I see myself as more worthy of just being myself? And when I started shifting that, that's when a lot of things started to change. You see, when I started thinking about what is it that I bring? What is it that I do that comes naturally to me that, people come to me for? What is it that I really enjoy and love creating in my life? What is it that lights me up? I started to focus more on me and what it is about me that I enjoyed. Like really about increasing my self-worth and my self-value. And when I started doing that, I noticed that I wasn't like looking at anyone else's lanes because I was too focused on my lane. Whereas before, I was too busy looking at everyone else and not looking down at my feet and wondering where I'm going. And that was the switch. That was when things started to change. The question became less about why are other people better than me? It switched to how is it that I can improve myself? And when I started to do that, the lightening of the load really made a difference, and it wasn't so energetically draining. And so that gave me permission to just be more of myself, to allow myself to play a little bit more, to fumble, to not be so perfectionistic. And the more I did that, the more I felt more secure with who I was, imperfections and all. And I stopped categorizing and putting myself in categories, because I realized that what I was doing was just really exploring what it meant to be me, as opposed to putting myself up against other people who are on their own journeys and who aren't looking to necessarily compare themselves to others. They're just doing their thing. And I wasn't letting them, because I was, in a way, intruding energetically, if you will, by going on about how great they were and putting them on pedestals, which is just not fair for anyone. What they say in the running community is like, run your own race. And, I used to be in the running community, and that comparison thing was huge, because I was constantly looking at other people's pace and other people's times in races and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I suck, I'm slow. And even though I had people saying, oh my God, Paul, but your pace is like so much better than, like so much faster than mine. And it still wouldn't matter, because I was like comparing myself to like the elites or the sub-elites, which is ridiculous. And eventually, the one thing that really helped me with that is I had a running coach who said, okay, I want you to run naked, not naked like without clothes, but naked in, don't bring your watch, your GPS, no stats, nothing. Run for just the sake of running for fun. And that was the hardest thing to do, because everything was stats for me. That's how I compared. I wanted to compartmentalize. And when I started doing that, and it was hard, I started to realize that I really was running my own race. And I started to find the fun in it again. It was a great reminder that we're not here to compare our times and our paces and all that, because we're all doing our own thing. And that's the thing. When you can connect more to yourself, when you can connect more to what it is that makes you you, when you can see that you have value as you are, it's not contingent on a number. It's not contingent on a performance. It's just the fact that you're in the race, the fact that you are trying something, the fact that you are doing the things that you want to do and that you like. That's all that matters. Other people's journeys are their own, and we don't know what it is that they've had to go through to get to where they are. We don't see that. We only see the tip of the iceberg. We don't see all the work and sacrifice and pain, all the stuff that they've had to go. We just look at, what they say, we compare their highlight reel with our editing room floor clippings or something like that. And that's what we do. We look at the worst of us and compare it to the best of them and don't put any context in there because it's easier to feel kind of crappy about ourselves. Because again, we don't have to change. And the funny thing is that it's in the changing that the real gold comes forth. As scary as it may seem, change is the thing that is going to get you out of that funk. And I find that the pain of staying the same was greater than the pain of changing. I found myself, and to this day, I still find myself looking back and going, why was I doing that for so long? And it was just because it came easy. That's because I wanted everything to be easy. And when you do the hard things, the growth is incredible. And so for me, what that looks like for me today is that I trust myself a lot more. I don't have to go looking for external validation or permission to do things because I feel like what I have to offer is enough. And I'm not looking at everyone else and looking at, oh, she's like this and he does this. I can look at other people for inspiration. I can be happy for other people. I can look at them and go, wow, that's a great idea. Or I love what they did. And think about maybe I can incorporate that myself or just leave it as is. Like that's their thing. And I celebrate them for that in the same way that I celebrate the things that I do for myself. You know, it's one of those things that I didn't, do affirmation marathons or journal forever. It was just one step at a time. And I think if you're in a place where you are comparing yourself over and over, is to stop and ask yourself, what am I getting out of this? Like, what's the benefit of doing this? Because we do things for a reason. And even if it's not to your benefit, we still do things because there's a payoff of some sort. And then think about that. Like, how is it, like, what is it that I want to be? Like, who do I want to be? And think about that sort of avatar or that self-image. What kind of person do I want to show up as? And write it out, create that self-image. And then think about how can I start embodying that person today? Like, pick one trait of that person and start practicing it today. Like, for example, one of the things I had for my self-image is, that I'm confident and that I don't look to others for permission and stuff. So what I did is to practice being confident, even in situations where I wasn't. And so I would do that, whether it's a social situation or putting myself out there online or whatever it is. I just faced that feeling of discomfort. And what I got in return is I start to feel more confident. I start to feel better. And then I'd pick another trait and so on and so forth. So you start to step into that person, that self-image. And at the end, and listen, I'm continually doing this. I'm still, practicing this, is that you will find your self-worth improving and the desire to compare yourself to others, it starts to wither away just naturally because that is no longer who you are. That is no longer on the menu. And then what you'll find is the only person you are in competition with is yourself. And that is so freeing and it is so fun. And it'll shift how you see yourself and others around you. So if you're struggling with comparing yourself, give that a shot. Look at who it is that, you're an amazing person. You're awesome. You're just downplaying yourself because you're creating this way of being that puts you last for some comfort or safety reason. It's like some way, somehow, your ego's looking for danger and keeping you small. And comparing yourself to others is a way of being safe and secure, but it's really holding you back. And not only is it robbing you of you to yourself, but of others. Let's not rob other people of ourselves because you have so many gifts and talents, skills and abilities, your personality, the way you are. You're one in a gazillion and you're meant to be here. So stop comparing yourself. You can't. It's just not possible. And if you found that useful in any way, I invite you to join the waitlist for the Firelight Circle, which is going to be a free online community where we're going to have spaces to talk about mindset and spirituality, things like this. And I'm also going to do lives, Q&As, all that for free. So the link is in the description. Join. And also, don't be afraid to share, like, and subscribe. That helps me. That'll help me just spread the message. And if you know someone that may want to join the Firelight Circle, send them my way. So this has been The Creative Alchemist. Thank you for being here. Create well, create often.